I'm Veronica, a somatic yoga teacher, and today I have for you a short standing sequence. You can begin with standing and walking on the spot, letting your feet land wherever they want, and then shift the weight between the toes and the heels a few times. Find yourself in space. Maybe inhale deeply, exhale. And then you can widen your stance and you can start rotating around your own axis. So that your arms are completely loose and they're just hitting your body as you move in that spiraling corkscrew-like motion. Everything stays quite relaxed and you choose the pace. Everything is loosening. And after a while, you could perhaps widen the stance just a tiny bit more and begin drawing an infinity sign or a number 8 with your hips on the ground. You might observe how your feet move, how your ankles react, how the whole body reacts to this movement, starting from the hips. Now turn your toes in as if you're skiing and then lift the front of the foot and turn the foot out. Then the leg follows, the hip follows, the torso follows and head goes last. Return the same way, starting with the foot, moving the leg, the hip, the torso and the head at the end. So it's very important that nothing goes before the foot. The foot leads and the rest follows. One by one, in a sequence. Eventually, lift the foot out at 90 degrees and maybe step the other foot forward as if you're on 2 railway tracks. You can re-establish your position, shift the weight a couple of times, wiggle your hips. Keep the weight evenly distributed over both feet and then imagine that something is pulling you by the front knee forward. So nothing else changes, the same weight over both feet, only the knee moves forward. And your torso is kind of diagonal across the mat. You could let your arms float out to the sides. And there's no reaching, there is no rigidness. It's all quite a light construct. You could start moving side to side, alternately opening more one side of the body and the other. You could have one arm over the head, but again, without reaching through the fingers, you're focusing more on opening that space between the ribs or above the waistline. You could add a breath to that, exhaling as you open one side of the body or not. And then you can straighten the knee and move the foot in again. So you're starting in the same position as before, and then you could do the same on the other side, turning the foot out, pivoting on the heel, and then the leg follows, the hip follows, the torso and the head at the end. After a couple times you could re-establish your position, maybe stand wider, sort of across the mat diagonally. You could check that you have the same weight over the feet, wiggle the hips, and then imagine that somebody or something is pulling you by the knee. That's how you land in your warrior. You could let your arms float out effortlessly. And then start switching the sides, the right and the left side. Open them alternately. Nothing changes in the position of the lower body. It's only everything above the waistline that opens particularly that space between the ribs, so the arms can stay relaxed as you do that. And then you can turn the foot in again. And let's go back to the first side, but this time rotate with both feet so that both feet are facing the short end of the mat. And it's a short stance, make it stable. You can start shifting the weight between the front foot and the back foot, keeping both knees bent and the torso upright, so the head is above the hips. Wiggle the hips, check that the legs are bouncy. And you could let your heel, your back heel, fall away, slowly drop away. And that creates a bit more space in the front of the thigh. And then you could wrap your kidney area, rub it vigorously. And slide the fingers along the front of the body, opening up the front without creating too much of a back bend, just reaching the chest forward and up. And exhale, you could release the arms. And come back to that wide stance. Maybe shift the weight a couple of times. And then pivot on both feet so that again you're facing the short end of the mat with both feet. Do the same on the other side, shifting the weight a couple of times first between the front and the back foot. Find that bounciness in the legs, wiggle the hips. And give yourself a moment to let that heel drop back, drop away. Nothing changes in the position of the spine as yet. And then you could rub the area of the kidneys, slide the backs of the hands along the midline of the body, opening it like with a zip. And it's the sternum that reaches forward. The head doesn't really need to lean back. The arms are not reaching too much, so there is space in the shoulder joints, and the elbows have a micro bend. And then you could release the arms and again come back to your wide stance. Maybe a few more rotations before you start that pivoting in a more dynamic way that kind of brings you to a twist. So you're shifting more the weight towards that front leg, it bends a little bit more and your body rotates around its own axis, and that gets you towards the twist. Don't think of reaching anywhere in particular, focus on that movement that starts from the heel and reaches all the way to the shoulder. Maybe you want to stop for a moment in that twist, resting your forearm or elbow on the thigh, but it doesn't really need to be long. And then keep yourself in an X shape, kind of open in all directions before you release the arms. Stand for a moment to feel, to notice any changes. Thank you very much.